It's hard to have a discussion about leadership when we don't really have a common definition of what a leader is. You know, I read the same books as everybody else. You know, a lot of them tell us to sort of learn your style of leadership, how to adapt your style of leadership to fit the situation at hand. That's not leadership, that's management. To be a leader, you need one thing and one thing only: followers. That's it. It has nothing to do with rank or authority. You are a leader when others raise their hands and volunteer to go in the direction you set. The question is, why should anyone follow you? There are many ways to get people to do the things that we want or to follow us. In fact, it all boils down to two things. You can either manipulate people or you can inspire them. Those are your options. We're all familiar with manipulations in the business world. Things like dropping your price. If you drop your price low enough, people will buy from you, right? This is the concept behind a sale. Things are priced to move. Promotions, 2 for 1, free toy inside, buy one, get one free. And in the business-to-business space, we call it value added. The concept is the same. It's giving stuff away for free to reduce someone's risk so they'll choose you over the competition. It is inherently manipulative. Fear, wonderful manipulator. If any of you are parents, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Peer pressure is another one. I'm sure we've all sat in our offices and had someone tell us, you know, 70% of your competitors are using our service, why aren't you? Maybe 70% of my competitors are idiots. Or maybe 70% of them were offered a price so low they couldn't resist. I don't know. The point is, when we hear that the majority is doing something, we either fear that we're being left out or that they know something that we don't, and it influences our behavior. One of my favorite manipulations is what companies like to call innovation. Real innovation changes the course of industries, if not the way we live our very lives. The fax machine, the light bulb, iTunes, this is real innovation. Adding a camera to your cell phone is a wonderful feature, but it is not an innovation. It's the difference between steps and leaps. And what most organizations like to call innovation is in reality novelty, little additions to their products, nothing earth-shatteringly different. In the 1970s, do you know how many choices of Colgate toothpaste there were? Take a guess. 2. Do you know how many there are now? 30. And that's just Colgate, which means that their competition is offering about the same number of products, about the same price, about the same quality, about the same service. And yet I have no data to show that people are brushing their teeth now more than they were 30 or 40 years ago. What happened was this annoying little thing called globalization, and markets opened up, and competition increased, and the metrics went down. It doesn't matter which one, market share, revenue, profits, it doesn't matter. The metrics went down. And then to combat that, the company added a new product. This one has fluoride. And people went, ooh, shiny. And they tried it, and the metrics went up. But the problem with competition is they compete, and they match the product about the same, and the metrics went down again. Well, it worked the first time, so we'll do it again, and again, and again, and again, until you have 30 different line extensions. And what's one of their big complaints these days, like so many other companies? How do we differentiate ourselves? That's hilarious to me. How do we get out of a problem that we created for ourselves? And so they resort to any number of the other manipulations. Now, I cannot dispute that these and many other manipulations work. They absolutely do. That's why we use them. The problem is, none of them breed loyalty. The problem is, none of them engender trust. The problem is, over the course of time, it costs more money because somebody has to pay for all this stuff. And over the course of time, it increases stress both for the buyer and for the seller. We live in a world today in which most products and most services, B2B or B2C, are sold this way. In other words, people are being bombarded with manipulations from all sides for all reasons from any number of products. It is stressful to be a decision maker these days. It is stressful to decide which product or which service is right for me. But it's equally as stressful to be on the selling side, in which we have to operate in a world in which the vast majority of things are sold through bombarding people with manipulations and promotions and value added. And so it's hard for us, if we truly have something special, to stand out in the crowd and be noticed. It's called stress. This is largely the world we live in today. But there's an alternative. That alternative is called inspiration. And there are only a few leaders and a few organizations that tend to rely vastly more on inspiration than manipulation. And I'll talk about some of the big ones, like Apple Computers or Harley Davidson or Southwest Airlines. But you see the same pattern in great leaders like Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King or John F. Kennedy. What I learned is that regardless of their size and regardless of their industry, every single one of these organizations, every single one of these leaders with the capacity to inspire, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to the rest of us. All I did was write it down. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. It's quite literally 3 concentric circles, a bullseye. In the middle is why, and the center ring is how, and the outside ring is what. I always like to joke that because I use a paper and a pen, I don't have AV problems. I have one. Let me define the terms. Every single organization on the planet knows what they do. These are the products we sell, the services we offer. Some know how they do it. Whether you call it your differentiating value proposition, your proprietary process, your USP, these are the things you think make you different or special or stand out from the crowd. But very, very few people and very, very few organizations can clearly articulate why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make money. That's a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose, what's your cause, what's your belief? Why does your company exist? I mean, do we really need another one? Why did you get out of bed this morning? And why should anyone care? As a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. We tell people what we do, we tell them how we're different or how we're special, and we expect some sort of behavior, a vote, a purchase, support. But not those leaders and not those organizations with the capacity to inspire. Every single one of them, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, thinks, acts, and communicates from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple frequently because they're easy to understand and we all get it. If Apple were like everyone else, a piece of communication would sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. This is normal. This is how most organizations communicate. You know, here's our new car. It's got tinted windows, great gas mileage, leather seats, choose us. Here's our law firm. We've got all the best lawyers, we went to all the best schools, we win all of our cases, we work with some of the largest companies, hire us. Here's how Apple actually communicates. They start with why. Here's what they say. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? It's totally different. It actually feels different. No trickery, no manipulation, no celebrity endorsements. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it starts to show us is that it's not what you do that matters, it's why you do it. And people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply serves as tangible proof of what you believe. This is the reason why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable with the idea that Apple sells computers and DVRs and phones and all these other products. MP3 players. Apple is not unique. Every single one of their competitors, pick one, it doesn't matter. Every single one of their competitors is equally qualified to make every single product that Apple makes. Apple does not have a lock on any of the resources. Everybody has equal access to the same talent, the same consultants, the same agencies, the same resources, the same media. It's a zero-sum game. The difference is their competitors have defined themselves by what they do. We make computers. Apple has defined themselves by why they exist, to challenge the status quo, to give the individual the opportunity to stand up to Big Brother, to give the individual the ability to do their own thing. And everything they say and everything they do proves what they believe. A few years ago, Dell, a perfectly good company that makes perfectly good products, came out with MP3 players. They are every little bit qualified to make these products. The difference is, nobody bought one. We couldn't imagine buying an MP3 player from a computer company, but we do it every day, because it's not what you do that matters, it's why you do it. And what you do serves as the tangible proof of what you believe. For this little thing to work, you have to have 3 things. 1, you have to have clarity of why. If you don't know why your company exists, how will anybody else? 2, you have to have discipline of how. You have to hold yourself and your people accountable to your own guiding principles and your own values. And thirdly, you have to have consistency of what? Everything you say and everything you do has to prove what you believe. At the end of the day, we live in the tangible world. At the end of the day, the only way people will know what you believe is if you say and do the things you actually believe. This is the concept behind authenticity. People are always telling us people prefer to vote for the authentic candidate. They prefer to buy from the authentic brand. What does that mean? What that means is those people and those organizations say and do what they actually believe. That's all that authenticity means. You have to say and do what you actually believe. And the reason is simple. The reason the human race is so successful is not because we're the strongest and not because we're the smartest. It's because we're social animals. It's because we have the ability to form cultures and communities. What's a country? It's a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs. What's a culture? It's a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs. What's a neighborhood? It's a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs. What's a company? It should be a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs. When we're surrounded by people who believe what we believe, something remarkable happens. Trust emerges. Make no mistake of it, trust is a feeling. Trust is a human condition. Simply doing everything you say you're going to do does not mean people will trust you. It just means you're reliable. We all have friends that screw up sometimes, and yet we still trust them. Trust is born out of a common set of values and beliefs, and it is absolutely essential for our survival. Because when we're surrounded by people we trust and who trust us, we're more willing to take risks, we're more willing to explore, we're more willing to experiment, which requires failure, all with the confidence that if we turn our backs, go away, or fall down, someone from within our communities will watch our backs, watch our stuff, and help us up when we fall down. Absent trust, we still have the will to survive, but absent trust, it's every man for himself. And it becomes selfish and destructive, and we act more and more and more short-term. Great organizations are not the ones that outperform necessarily every quarter. Great organizations are the ones that in hard times, people come together. You want to know why Lehman Brothers failed? Lehman was exceptionally good at what they did. They were exceptionally good at how they did it. But at the slightest shimmy, the whole thing collapsed. Not in months, not in weeks, in days. Great organizations in hard times come together. It's like the quality of a crew. We cannot judge the quality of a crew when the seas are calm. We cannot judge the quality of a company when the economy is good. Just because they're making money is no indication of how strong the organization and how strong the culture is. However, when the seas are rough, how good is the crew? Did they run to each other's aids or did they jump off the ship? All with the same thing. Every man for himself. Got to look after numero uno. Got to pay the bills. Got to feed the family. Got to survive. Great organizations, the people sacrifice themselves for each other. In the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. We have it backwards. This is not my opinion. This is grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, but biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain evolved into three major sections that corresponds precisely with this little idea. The outside area is called our neocortex. It's our Homo sapien brain, responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. This is why you can't ask your customers, why do you do business with us? Why do you love us? They can't tell you, because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. This is where gut decisions come from. There is no part of your stomach that controls decision-making. And it's not in your blood, and it's not in your bones, and you're not following your heart. We ascribe it to different parts of our body because the part of our brain that controls language doesn't control decision-making. And it's not an accident that we use the verb to feel to describe gut decisions. I know all the data says we should do that, but it doesn't feel right. That would be biologically accurate. The part of the brain that controls feeling controls decision-making. This is also the reason why the question, why do you love your husband or why do you love your wife, is a difficult question. Why do you love your wife? I don't know. That's where most people start. You've been married for 15 years and you don't know why you love your wife, you know? She's smart, she's fun, I can trust her, I've known her forever, you know? Sounds like a golden retriever, right? And then we start saying things that don't even make sense, right? She completes me. Don't know what that means. right? I have a left arm and a left leg. She's got a right arm and a right leg. Together we make one. I don't even know what it means. What we're attempting to do is verbalize the feelings we have towards a person or an organization with the part of the brain that doesn't control language. And so we make things up, we rationalize, or we actually say things that don't make sense. How many of you love your Macintosh computer or know someone who loves their Macintosh computer? Okay, they always put their hands up so quickly, they're always so excited. You can always tell people who love their Macs, because when you try to explain to them rationally, based on facts and figures, they actually bought substandard computers, they start foaming at the mouth, right? But rationally speaking, that's exactly what happened. Rationally speaking, based on facts and figures, Macs are at least 25% more expensive than their PC counterparts, sometimes double their price. There's less software, there's fewer peripherals, and they're absolutely slower. I mean, there's nothing faster about them. I have one, and I get that spinning beach ball of death all the time, right? The difference is, Apple's not selling us one of these, they're selling us one of these. Because Apple is so clear about what they believe, so disciplined how they do things, and so consistent in what they do, it gets the point that their computers serve as a symbol of a set of values and beliefs. Those people who love their Macs didn't buy it just for the product based on the rational sensibilities and the rational differentiators. They bought it to demonstrate something about who they are. This is why Mac lovers love opening their computers in airports. Right? People with PCs don't open their computers in airports. They don't care. It's just a commodity. It's just a computer. And sometimes you see a PC with an Apple sticker. That's somebody telling you, my office gave me the computer. This is not really who I am. It's a symbol for who they are. Because you see, our survival depends on our ability to find people who believe what we believe. And because the part of the brain that controls behavior doesn't control language, we rely on stories and symbols and all of these things to help communicate who we are. This is why authenticity matters. Because if you say and do the things you actually believe, you will attract people who believe what you believe. If you lie, people will be drawn to the lie, but we will start to figure out that you don't actually believe those things, and so we don't trust you. This is why we don't generally trust politicians. Because when we sit down and evaluate all the things they tell us, yes, rationally speaking, all of their opinions happen to align completely perfectly with all the beliefs I have, but we know that they're not telling us things that they actually believe. And so we don't trust them. Trust is a very, very important thing. Our survival depends on it. We're highly, highly attuned to it. I had the great honor of visiting Quantico Marine Base in Quantico, Virginia. And on the day I was there, this is where the Marines select their officers who will then lead their Marines into battle. And the day I was there, the colonel in charge of OCS was about to give me a presentation about their selection process and how they run things. And there happened to have been an incident while I was there. And they were considering throwing one of their Marines out of the Marine Corps. So of course, curious Simon, I said, well, what happened? You know, it must have been serious if you're considering throwing him out of the Marine Corps. And they said, we caught a guy falling asleep on watch. I said, in Virginia? Like, that's it? You know, it's not like he was in combat or something. You caught a guy falling asleep on watch in the woods of Virginia, and you're going to throw him out for that. A little strict, don't you think? And the guy said, no, you don't understand. He said when we questioned him about it, he denied it. When we questioned him about it again, he denied it again. And only when we gave him irrefutable proof that he had fallen asleep on watch did he say, and I quote, I want to take responsibility for my actions. And the problem we have in the Marine Corps is that you take responsibility for your actions at the moment you perform those actions, not at the point you get caught. You see, integrity matters, he said. If I'm going to put him in charge of a group of Marines in combat, and they're not 100% sure that every word that comes out of his mouth is the truth, if there's any doubt that he's saying things to cover his own skin, it puts people in danger and people will die. Unless you're completely, completely honest, we cannot have you in our Marine Corps and we cannot let you lead. Being honest is a very, very simple thing. All it means is you tell the truth. I would rather you disappoint with the truth than appease with a lie. And it goes back to our survival instinct. If we sense for a moment that someone is lying to us, the question is, will we be able to go into a foxhole with them? Again, there's a benefit to group living in an anthropological sense. It means that we can fall asleep and trust that others in our group will watch for danger. And if we don't trust that we can fall asleep and allow others to watch for danger, if we fear they're going to take something from us or not alert us to danger or not wake us or not defend us, then we'll never fall asleep and we'll never trust anybody and eventually we'll all die. This is how powerful this stuff is. We all have the natural capacity to find people who believe what we believe. Like I said, we're hardwired for this. If I ask you to go out in the street and find the people who believe what you believe, you know exactly what to do. You're going to strike up a conversation. This is why we say sales is about relationships, no kidding, right? And you have an exchange with them, and sometimes there's good chemistry and sometimes there's not, whatever that means, right? Sometimes it's quick and sometimes it's slow. The point is it's not scalable. It's not scalable. But if I tell you to go outside and find all the people wearing red hats, it's easy. There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. When you know what symbols to look for, it's easy to find the people who believe what you believe. Just like all you Mac lovers, and don't lie to me, when you're walking through the airport and you see somebody else with their laptop open, you like them a little more, don't you? It's because Apple is so clear about what they believe, so disciplined about how they do things, and so consistent in what they do. We're using these symbols, we're using these brands, we're using these things to say something about who we are in an attempt to attract people who believe what we believe. Leadership is the ability to stand on the street corner and simply talk about your own red hat. Got a red hat here. Got a red hat. Got a red hat. And all the other red hatters, whether they can see their own red hat or not, whether they know their own why or not, are eerily drawn to you because you're the one capable of putting their values and beliefs into words, and they can use you to say something about who they are. People who are most loyal to your company are the ones who see their jobs as a reflection of who they are and what they believe. They see your company as a reflection of who they are and what they believe. There are people walking around with Harley-Davidson tattoos on their body. This is a corporate logo. Some of them don't even own the product. There's nobody walking around with Procter & Gamble on their arm. It's because Harley is so clear about what they believe, so disciplined about how they do it, and so consistent in what they do, it gets the point that everything they say and everything they do serves as proof of what they believe. The reason this stuff is important can be summed up in something called the law of diffusion of innovation. And if you don't know the law, you definitely know the terminology. It's the old bell curve, the standard deviation. And what it tells us is that the first 2.5% of our population are our innovators. The next 13.5% of our population are our early adopters. Then you have your early majority, your late majority, and the last 16% are your laggards. The only reason these people buy touch-tone phones is because you can't buy rotary phones anymore. That's my parents. What the law of diffusion tells us is that this population, the innovator and the early adopter population, are very comfortable trusting their guts. They're very comfortable making intuitive decisions. They're willing to pay a premium and go out of their way to be a part of something that reflects their own beliefs. These are the people who stood in line for 6 hours to buy iPhones when they first came out, even though you could go into the store and just buy one off the shelf a week later. These are the people who spent $40,000 or $50,000 to buy flat-screen TVs when they first came out, even though the technology was substandard. It had nothing to do with the technology. It had to do with them. The majority of the population is more cynical and more practical. They absolutely care about things like price and quality and service and features. The problem is they're not willing to try something until somebody else has tried it first. This is the reason we have to drop our price and offer promotions, all kind of value added, because these are the ones we have to reduce their risk. These people happily pay a premium and work with substandard products if it reflects their beliefs. And these people won't try something until somebody else has tried it first. In other words, to achieve mass market success or long-term stability, it's not about appealing to these people, it's about appealing to these people. And if you can get 15 to 18% market penetration, and I don't mean of the market, I mean of the people who believe what you believe, then there's a social phenomenon, the tipping point. 15 to 18% of those who believe what you believe, and it just tips and it goes mass. We all get about 10%. Law of averages says if you ignore everything I'm saying, you'll get about 10%. 10% of our customers love us, 10% of our employees love us. But it's not enough to make it tip, you see. I'll give you two examples, a famous failure and a famous success. First, the famous failure. It's a business example. In the US, we have a product called TiVo. It's a digital video recorder. When TiVo was introduced into the marketplace about 12 or 13 years ago, it was and continues to be the single best product on the market, hands down, undisputed. It is the best technology out there and continues to be this to this day, right? And if you ask most organizations, and you ask most companies, why did your product fail? Why did your company fail? They usually give you some combination of the same few reasons. Undercapitalized, didn't have enough money. Poorly executed, wrong people, bad market conditions. Okay, that's the recipe for success. So TiVo has the best product on the market, execution flawless. Venture capital up the wazoo. Money, no problem. They hired the best engineers money could buy. People, not a problem. And the market conditions are incredible. In the US, we use TiVo as a verb. The unaided awareness of the brand is in the 90th percentile. It's common. Market conditions, fantastic. TiVo is a commercial and financial failure. They've never made money. And when their company went public, it launched at about $40 or $50 and then very quickly plummeted, and except for a couple of little blips, has never ever traded above 10 bucks. And the reason is because they took this brilliant product, brilliantly executed, brilliantly funded, and they told the mass market, we have a product that pauses live TV, skips commercials, memorizes your viewing habits on your behalf, and records without you even asking. And the cynical, practical majority said, I don't believe you, I don't need it, I don't like it, I don't want it, you're scaring me. And so they didn't buy one. There were a few early adopters, and to this day they love their TiVos and have upgraded it every year, but it wasn't enough to make it tip. Now imagine if TiVo had launched their product to this population, explaining why it exists. If you're the kind of person who likes to take total control over every aspect of your life, boy, do we have a product for you. It pauses live TV, skips commercials, memorizes your viewing habits, and records on your behalf without you even asking. In this instance, what the product does serves as tangible proof of why it exists. It is not the reason we make the choice in the first place. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Now I'll give you my favorite example of the law of diffusion. Martin Luther King, in 1963, August of 1963, gave his I Have a Dream speech, and 250,000 people showed up on the Mall in Washington to hear Dr. King speak. No invitations were sent out, and there was no website to check the date. How many emails did you get to show up here today? Right? It was 7, 8? It was 500 people here, right? Nothing. Right? Dr. King was not the only man in America who knew what had to change to bring about civil rights in that country. He wasn't the only great orator of the day. He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America. In fact, he suffered less than most because he was off at university. He wasn't even the perfect man. He had his complexities, and we just don't talk about that stuff. The difference is he had a gift. He didn't go around telling people what we need to do, how we're going to do it. He went around and told people, I believe, I believe, I believe. And people who believed what he believed took his cause and made it their own. And they told people what they believed. And those people took that cause and made it their own, and they told people what they believed. And some built structures to get the word out more efficiently. And lo and behold, on the right day, on the right time, 250,000 people showed up on the Mall to hear him speak. How many of them showed up for him? 0. They showed up for themselves. It's what they believed. It's the America that they wanted to live in. It's the America that they wanted to raise their children in, that inspired them to get on a bus, travel for 8 hours, stand in Washington in the sun in the middle of summer, simply to hear him speak. Simply showing up was one of the things that they did in their life to prove what they believe. Even Dr. King, it wasn't about black versus white. Dr. King had a belief that there are 2 types of laws in this world. There were the laws made by man, and there are the laws made by a higher authority. And not until the laws of man are consistent with the laws of a higher authority would we live in a just world. The civil rights movement was the perfect way for him to bring his cause to life. Oh, and by the way, he gave the I Have a Dream speech, not the I Have a Plan speech. Everybody's got their comprehensive 12-point plan these days. We're not inspired by your plan. We're inspired by what you believe and where you're going. This is the remarkable thing about human beings. We can imagine the future. We can only see the things that we have words for. And this is what great leaders do. They can put these things into words. Let's imagine that this room is empty and we're standing over here in the corner. I give you a very simple instruction. I want you to go to that corner in a straight line. Off you go, no problem. And without telling you, I quickly put a chair in front of you. And what do? You go around the chair. This is the remarkable thing about human beings. When we're crystal clear on the place we're going, on the destination, on the vision, our route is flexible. Even though you just ignored what I told you to do, I told you to go in the straight line. This is the great thing about people. When we are clear on the destination, we are flexible on the route. Reset. Let's stand in the corner again. I give you a simple instruction. I want you to go in a straight line to some point in this room. And you say, well, where do you want me to go? I say, I don't know. You're smart. Pick a place. And so you pick an arbitrary point in the room and you start walking there. And without telling you, I quickly put a chair in front of you. And what do? You come to a grinding halt, or you make a sudden sharp turn. And I say to you, what are you doing? You say, well, how can I go in a straight line if you put a chair in front of me? In other words, when we're not clear on the destination or the destination is arbitrary, we become obsessed with the route. And now you think about how we do business these days. You know, what's your goal for the end of the year? To increase top-line revenues by $500 million. Why not $400 million? Why not $600 million? There are arbitrary points in the room. And then we become obsessed with the strategies that we've set to get there, as opposed to the great leaders and the great organizations that explain why their companies exist, and then leave it to their people to figure out the route how to get there. And that's how you get innovation. Leadership's only responsibility is to point north, to point the direction, to say where we're going, and allow everybody else to figure out how to get there. This is what we feel fulfilled about our ability to contribute to the organization. This is exactly why Apple is the most innovative company in the world. It's not because Steve Jobs came up with all the ideas. Do you know how many ideas he actually came up with? None. Even Steve Wozniak was the one who built the computer in the first place. Long, long ago, before Apple even existed, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were sitting in a garage in Cupertino, California, and they made something called the Little Blue Box, which allowed people to avoid paying long-distance rates on their phone bills. They were challenging the monopoly phone company, Ma Bell. And then they started Apple, and they challenged Big Blue, the existing monopoly computer platform, IBM. And then they challenged Microsoft, and then they challenged the phone industry, and then they challenged the music industry, and now they're challenging the publishing industry, and if you're in television and movies, you're next. It's just a repeating pattern. Jobs told people that he believed in making products that allowed people to have more control, that we shouldn't be at the dictate of large organizations that tell us how things should work, and he allowed it to his people to figure out ways how to get there. That's what drives innovation, a clear sense of destination, not an obsession with the route. There are leaders and there are those who lead. Leaders hold a position of power or influence or rank, but those who lead inspire us. And whether they're individuals or organizations, we follow those who lead not because we have to, but because we want to. And we follow those who lead not for them, but for ourselves. This is for those who want to inspire those around them. This is for those who want to find someone to inspire them. Thank you very much.
So much. It sounds very good, with all due respect. Very well presented.
Thank you.
But how can these executives here be sure, how do you know that when they go back home and they start asking themselves the question why, that it is actually going to change the way their operation operate and the profit that they make?
Well, how do I know? I don't. But you know, these things are like it's like having a family. You know, you as a parent know that the right thing to do to raise your children right is to afford them every ability to access to education, and you know that it's your responsibility to help them understand their strengths and build on their strengths, and you know that it's your responsibility to encourage and push them, sometimes discipline them, sometimes help them up, sometimes let them falter by themselves, all with the hope and aspiration that they will achieve more than even you could achieve. Unfortunately, you will not see the results of your investment for 30 years, 20 years. You're not going to see it, and yet we know that that's the right thing to do. You know, even at the age of 16, 17, 18, you have no clue if everything you've done as a parent will pay off, right? And yet instinctively, we still do what we believe and know is the right thing to do. Businesses are exactly the same. You have two families, one at work and one at home. Great leaders, great bosses, great coaches, great drill instructors, it doesn't matter. Those that have the responsibility for others act like parents. They take it upon themselves to give their employees access to as much education, as much competence, as much as they can learn, open the doors to them, allow them to fail, help them up, all with the desire and the want to see that they succeed beyond even what we could hope to achieve. And this is what you see in great organizations. They make it their complete obsession to help their people grow, as opposed to having one bad quarter and laying people off. You can't lay off your children if they have a bad report card. So it's an investment.
So, what, if I may try to rephrase you, what you're really saying is that this is not necessarily a thing that will lead to more profit, but it will give you a feeling that you are doing something good while at work.
Oh, no. It will lead to more profit. Now, the question...
How do you know?
Every single organization that obeys these things is more successful than those who don't. More importantly, they can sustain things like innovation, they can sustain things like profitability, they can sustain things like loyalty for the long term. I'm unimpressed by organizations that are able to prove that they've done something for 1 year or 2 years. Let's talk about 30, 40, or 50 years. 80% of the Dow Index are companies 35 years or younger. That's not impressive. Organizations that can last are impressive. And more importantly, when you have trust in your people and your people have trust in you, When your people believe that you're willing to go to bat for them and protect them, guess what? They will give everything. They will give blood, sweat, and tears to you. If they don't believe that you'll go to bat for them, then they're just working for your money. And so if you have the desire to be more innovative, if you have the desire for longevity, if you have the desire that during hard times your people will be there for you and won't abandon you, then these things were helpful. If you don't really care and you just want to play a quarterly game and every single day is more stressful than the last, more power to you.
But Simon, if I may, so I'm assuming that you're also actually selling some sort of product here, right? Now my question to you is, so where is this why taking you? Where are you? Are you part of this? Are you somewhere else?
I have nothing to sell, but that's fine. I come here, I'll tell you why I'm here, because I have a vision of the world. I believe that fulfillment is a right and not a privilege. I believe it is not for the chosen few to love what they do and enjoy going to work. I believe every single one of us has the right to wake up every single morning to inspired to go to work and come home fulfilled by the work that we do. I'm committed to this vision, and so I will play my small part, which is I have some tools and some ideas and perspective that may help point us that direction. I play one piece of a jigsaw puzzle. The reason I come and do events like this is because you're actually building the companies. You're the ones actually responsible for the human beings that will be fulfilled. And so if I can give you some pieces that will actually help your people love coming to work and help you love coming to work, oh, and by the way, you'll also be more innovative, more profitable, and have greater loyalty, then so be it. That's my piece of the puzzle. As for me, I'm living proof of this. You know, a few years ago, I went through a struggle in my own business where I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. I completely lost my passion for what I was doing. And people gave me stupid advice like, do what you love. You know, it's like, I'm doing the same thing, I don't love it anymore, you know? And so when I learned that every single organization on the planet, even our own careers, always function on these three levels, what we do, how we do it, and why we do it, and if one of those pieces is missing, it'll be out of balance, the system will be out of balance. I realized that I knew what I did, I knew how I did it, but I didn't know why, and I completely committed myself to finding out this for myself. It restored my passion to levels I'd never experienced prior. And I shared it with my friends, because that's what we do. We share beautiful things with the people we love. They invited me to their homes to share it with their friends, and so it goes on. And I'm the same idiot that I was, you know, a few years ago. I'm still a moron when it comes to running a business. I haven't learned anything new. And yet the life that I lead right now, where I get to advise ambassadors and members of Congress, and I work at the highest levels of military and work with, you know, CEOs of the largest corporations and get invited to nice places like this to speak to the likes of you, are not because I'm smarter than I was. It's because I made the conscious decision to start from here as opposed to starting from here.
That certainly answers my question. Simon Sinek, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot.